after spirit comes soul. And for this one, I found it difficult to choose which practice to offer you because I've collected so many helpful soul-based practices for letting go. So rather than pick one, I've chosen to include three, which I'm going to hammer through and demonstrate to you, or at least talk you through. And I'm expecting that the second two particularly will generate all kinds of questions and will be need some time and effort to work through. And if I'm available to answer questions on a coaching call, or you can direct questions via email, I'd be really happy to do that. There is also work that's been done by other people, books that have been written that can really help with some of this, so I can direct you to those where necessary too. So the first principle technique I want to teach you is what Heartmath, the institute in California that does a lot of research into alignment, is calling inner ease. And it is really a very simple breathing technique, and many of us probably would do this sort of thing anyway, but knowing why we do it, having it grounded in the research around attunement and alignment and the effects of stress on our body, I have found to be personally really rewarding in enabling me to focus on doing this particular breathing exercise. And so the breathing slowly and deliberately is combined here with a focus around a mental image of the heart opening. And what the inner ease technique teaches us to do is to imagine that our breath was a bit like energy circling in our body, and that as we breathe in, we take into our heart energy, and as we breathe out, we release energy. So we have this kind of circular flow imagination in our minds, and we can see it sort of circulating around that region up to our heads, back down to our navel. And when we talked earlier about the solar plexus, it's actually very central here to our chest area, just below our hearts. And if you want to think about that part of your body as you're doing this, and really focus on that, and see if you can spot when you relax internally, if there's a drop and release sensation in that region of your body, if you can feel your heart opening. It may be that your shoulders drop and your facial muscles relax, but imagining this as an opening experience. I mean, I guess this comes across as a body technique and as a heart technique, but I'm wanting to use this to help us to open out our hearts to let go of emotions, and also to receive positive affirmations that we want. So I'm going to take a few deep breaths, and I'm going to close my eyes, and with the in breath I'm going to imagine that I am taking in love, affirmation and energy into my heart center. And then on the out breath, I'm going to imagine that up through my neck and my head, I'm releasing anything I don't want. Stresses, strains, stuck feelings, past hurts, niggles, complaints, difficult relationships, anything that I want to let go of. I'm imagining it coming out of my head and falling away from me. And then again, I circle up, in and out. I'm just going to do this in maybe a couple of minutes with 3 or 4 deep in breaths and out breaths, and I invite you to join me and use the techniques that I've outlined to fire up your imagination and see your heart opening inside you. Okay, let's go. And last in breath, take in air until your lungs are really, really full. I find energetically the combination of my body's rhythmic deep breathing and my mind's focus on the pictures of releasing and receiving to be really enlarging and enlightening for me as I practice that one. So that's the inner ease breathing technique, just simply combining our imagination, our focus on the heart with our body's balancing system of breathing. And the second practice that I love to point people to is the work of somebody called Byron Katie, who is an American who has gone around the world really advocating for questions that reframe and enable us to let go of our judgment thoughts. And I found her work to be really helpful. She's written a book called Loving What Is, and another book called 4 Questions, which if you want more information than I outline here, do go and get those and do the deep dive research. It's really worth your time to focus on these 4 questions and in the whole load of resources that she's produced around them. But the 4 questions start with any statement that judges or makes conclusions about the world. So I am working with a coach at the moment, and her and I were talking about the relationship I have with my sister, and one of the judgments that I make sometimes, which is that she doesn't have any time for me. And as I go through the 4 questions, I want to unpack this statement and give you an example of how you can take any thought, literally any thought in your life, whether you've judged somebody else or you've judged yourself, and put it kind of through the mincer and come out with something that is lighter and more helpful the other end. So the 4 questions are, is that true? My sister doesn't have time for me. Is that true? Well, in the first answer, I would usually say, yes, that's not true. She has 2 children, 1 very small child. She has 2 jobs. She has a home to run. She travels. She's very busy and she doesn't have time for me. The second question is, can you be absolutely sure that that's true? And the answer is, well, no, I can't be absolutely sure that that's true. She has time for many other things. She makes time for looking after herself and friends, and perhaps that's not as true as I think it is. And the third question, is, what does that statement cause you to think or feel, or how does it cause you to behave? And in terms of my sister doesn't have time for me, I would back off. I would not ring her. I would not put the effort in. I would discount her from any connections I might initiate. And I would generally avoid and back off, which aren't behaviors, thoughts, or feelings I want to push into in my life. And then the 4th question is, who would you be without those behaviors, thoughts, and feelings? I find this the most powerful part of the 4 questions exercise. Because as I think about my relationship with my sister, and I think about being more connected, more proactive, of all the things I could achieve by seeing her as somebody who's got time for me and investing more in our relationship, I am amazed at how different that concept is from the way I behave in my worst moments. And the very last part of the 4 questions is to do a turnaround, i.e. to kind of reconstruct the sentence that you started with and to see if the turnaround is more useful to you than the original statement. So you're letting go of your preconceptions and seeing how your mind could be free to think about this in a different way. So for me, A turnaround from the statement, my sister doesn't have time for me, would obviously be, she does have time for me, or I have time for my sister, which is a helpful way of seeing it. And then finally, I have time for me. A reflection on my relationship with myself. How much is that is actually driving the relationship I have with her? And so as I come out the other end with some different options, as I've let go of the judgments I've made, I can see if any of those reorders fit better and take them away to be a new statement, a new place to send my mind and my emotions that is ultimately more helpful, more uplifting, and more expansive than the first.